Hi dear students, greetings of the day. Welcome back to another session of English. In the last session, we started the explanation of section 2, a visit to the doctor. We went halfway through the chapter. We have seen it is a childhood story of Roald Dahl. In the summer vacation, he was at his grandparents' house when he comes to know he had got adenoids. And we were discussing his experience at the doctor's house. The last line we read was, I refused as I thought he was going to do something to my teeth, and from my past experience I knew that it would be painful. Now let's continue with the chapter. The doctor spoke again very gently, and like a fool I agreed to open my mouth. It won't take 2 seconds, he said. The tiny blade disappeared and went high up into the roof of my mouth. The doctor gave the blade 4 or 5 very quick little twists, and the next moment a whole lot of blood and flesh came tumbling out into the basin. In the last session, we have seen that the doctor has asked him to open his mouth, but he refused as he had bad experience with the dentist in the past. Now, the doctor was very kind to him, so he opened his mouth. The doctor said it won't take 2 seconds. Then he could see that the tiny blades disappeared in his mouth. The doctor twisted it 4 to 5 times and lot of blood and flesh came out of his mouth to the basin. Let's continue to read. I was horrified by the huge red lumps that had fallen out of my mouth and too shocked to do anything but let out a yell. I thought the doctor had cut off the middle of my head. The doctor simply said, those were your adenoids. I sat there breathing hard. The roof of my mouth seemed to be on fire. I grabbed my mother's hand and held it tightly. So dear students, he was scared of the red flesh that fell from his mouth into the basin. He let out a yell and felt that the doctor had cut his head from the middle. And the doctor told him that those were his adenoids. He could not breathe because of the pain. Students, the operation of adenoid was done without even using an anesthetic. The only thing he could do was grab his mother's hand tightly. Now students, you know he went to the doctor's place with his mother and grandmother. But whenever a child faces any problem, the first person that the child searches for is his mother. Here in the same way, the writer have grabbed his mother's hand. And let's see now what happens. Stay where you are, the doctor said. You will be all right in a minute. I was still dripping blood from my mouth into the bowl which the nurse was holding. Spit it all out, she said. There's a good boy. Then the nurse wiped my lips and washed my face. They lifted me out of the chair and stood me on my feet. So dear students, now the doctor said him to remain where he was for a minute and then he'll be all right. The blood was still dripping from his mouth. Once he was done, the nurse wiped his lips and washed his face, and then they lifted him out of the chair. Now, when he was standing on his feet, he was still shivering. Let's continue to read. My mother took my hand and we walked the full half hour it took to reach home. No trolley car or taxi for me. My grandmother said, let him sit in the chair and rest for a while. After all, he has had an operation. So I sat near her and she covered one of my hand in both hers and said, that won't be the last time you will go to a doctor. And with a bit of luck, they won't do you too much harm. Now, he walks back to his house holding his mother's hand. Students, here he had undergone an operation. but there was no trolley car or taxi to take him home. Later, at his grandmother's words, he is allowed to sit for few minutes and take rest. The grandmother said to him that this was not the last time you are visiting a doctor, but the visits are usually for our good. That was in 1924 when taking out a child's tonsils as well as adenoids without any anesthetic was common. I wonder what you would think if a doctor did that to you today. From Boy Tales of Childhood by Roald Dahl. So students, this operation was done in 1924 when there was no anesthetic given to child before removing the child's tonsils and adenoids. But today we can't even think of such an operation without anesthetic. Students, as I said in the last session, this was a story taken from Roald Dahl's autobiography. Students, before ending the video, I would like to say the reason for the invention of anesthetic. In olden days, operations caused great agony to the patient that some of them died of the pain and shock, which led many scientists to invent anesthetic. So this was the section 2, a visit to the doctor. Read the chapter at home and understand it. Bye.